This podcast is for information purposes only and is not and should not be construed as professional advice or an offer or commitment by any Rabobank Group member to enter into a transaction. The views expressed by the presenter and or guests are their own and do not necessarily represent the views of Rabobank. Please see the podcast description for our full disclaimer.
Soils underpin New Zealand's food and fibre sector, and managing for healthy soils improves the natural capacity of soil to sustain plants, animals and humans. As well as on-farm production and performance, improved soil health is expected to benefit the wider environment with improved freshwater and nutrient outcomes, support for biodiversity, enhanced soil carbon storage and reduced greenhouse gas emissions. On this week's episode, we're joined by David Williams, the head of on-farm excellence at Synlait, and he talks to us about the partnership between food producers, Synlait Milk and Danone, science provider AgResearch and the Ministry for Primary Industries Sustainable Food and Fibre Futures Fund, who have started a project to assess the impact of regenerative ag practices on New Zealand farms. The project is studying soil health on 10 farms across the Waikato, Canterbury and Otago over a 5-year period to determine the impacts of changes in soil health on production, farm resilience and the environment. David, welcome to Growing Our Future podcast. It's great to have you here today.
No worries. Good to be here, Katie.
Before we crack into it, David, I always like to hear a little bit about our guests, who you are, where you're based, a bit about your career and your current role at Synlait.
Sure. So my role at Synlait is Head of On-Farm Excellence. I've been with Synlait for 16 years. My current role is about the future, really, so not so much around milk supply operations, but more about what we're going to do next and how we're working with our farmers to give them, make sure we're giving them what they need and also for our customers as well.
Awesome. And before Synlait, have you always been in the ag industry?
Yes, yep. Before this, I worked for Fonterra for some time and Assure Quality before that.
Awesome. Nice. Now, David, today I'm keen to cover off a bit about the soil health regen project that Synlait is running with a few other partners. It's currently in its 3rd year. But before we get into that, I'd like to sort of understand a bit about the drivers behind the focus around sustainability for Synlait. Yep. I know it's a pretty important part of your strategy. So yeah, keen to explore that.
So we started out as a farming company. So when I joined in 2008, we had quite a large farming business. We had 15 large dairy farms. So the focus initially really was about farm sustainability rather than whole supply chain sustainability. So that was a big focus of ours in the early days, particularly about water quality, but also across people and animals as well. And then over time, as the interest and concern, I guess, around climate has come in, then greenhouse gases have become part of that as well. And so our journey really was sort of solidified, really, I guess, in 2013 when we released Lead with Pride, which is our best practice program that we have in place for farmers. And the next step in our journey was 2018 when we really made sustainability a focus across the whole supply chain, including setting some pretty aggressive targets for climate change and for water quality and a number of other things, both on farm and off farm. Yes, it's been our journey, really. Yeah.
And was that driven by who drove that back in 2018? Was that driven by customer or was that driven by like a strategic direction from the business?
It was definitely a bit of both, really, but there was definitely some customer feedback in there. And I do remember one of our biggest customers, when asked the question, what's the biggest thing we can do for you? And it was measure your greenhouse gases on farm and start reducing them. So that was the first thing that a very senior executive in one of those big multinational companies came out with. So we're having discussions like that. And also it just felt like the right thing to do, and the timing was right to do it.
Okay, and so could you just give us a bit of an overview of the soil health project that Synlait are running with Danone and AgResearch?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So it's an SFFF funding. So we're lucky enough to have that funding via MPI. It's been going since 2021, and the partners, as you pointed out, are Danone, AgResearch, and ourselves, obviously, and we have some help from Agricom in there as well, and obviously MPI as well, being the funder via SFFF. So there's 10 farms involved. There's 2 Synlait supplying farms in the Waikato, 4 Synlait supplying farms here in Canterbury, and 4 Danone supplying farms down in Otago. And so really, initially where this came from is we wanted to, and we've been talking to customers about regenerative agriculture, and obviously Danone's involved as a customer. But we wanted to be quite clear what the focus was, because especially then, it's getting a little bit better now, but regenerative is quite a large, you can put all sorts of things under that heading. So really, when we thought about what were we actually looking for from our point of view, and discussions with customers as well, and farmers, and everyone was pretty clear that soil health would be one that you'd get rid of sort of that background noise, and be able to do something quite meaningful without, I guess, having a little bit of controversy in there as well.
Yeah.
But we did also choose within the project to do, so that it's a soil health project, but there is also a regenerative aspect in there as well. We've got a diverse pastures trial going on as well. So we didn't completely leave the regenerative bit behind, but the big focus really was on soil health. Okay.
And when you say soil health, what is it that you're looking at?
So we wanted to, I guess the outcome, or the output that we wanted was a kind of an open sourced way that farmers could easily measure and benchmark their own soil health, and perhaps have some tools that enabled them to diagnose if they had this thing happening, then what they could do to fix it. So that was kind of the thing that we thought that we could contribute, and the thing that was lacking. And we wanted it to be more than just NPK, really. So more than just about fertility. So in there, we're talking about doing visual soil assessments. We're also talking about carbon, and we're also thinking about earthworms and those sort of things as well. So wider, and we wanted something that farmers. It was really quite farmer centric. So really, one of the first things we did was figure out, what's important in terms of soil health to farmers, to make sure that was collected, and that was part of what we looked at. And so obviously, I guess, well, not obviously, but the three main things that we were trying to figure out was measure those aspects, and measure and benchmark, I guess, so be able to show that could be easily done. Obviously, there's the regen aspect of the trial as well, and within that sort of, well, how does that work for farmers? How easy is it to manage? How easy is it to keep pests out and graze, and what happens if you reduce nitrogen, that sort of thing? Is it economic to do it? So FarmX is a big piece of what we're doing as well. And then the last one was, obviously we wanted to, or hoping to see a change for better in soil health over that period of 5 years.
Amazing. And in terms of the drivers for Danone, because obviously they're quite a big partner in the project, what are their drivers? So, a bit difficult for me to talk to them really, but my understanding would be, having worked with them as a customer, they have a very deep interest in regenerative agriculture, and making sure that the world is, that with agriculture we're doing less harm, I guess, and improving things. So that would be a big focus from their end. So they have a focus on reducing greenhouse gases, and also regenerative agriculture as well. So. Okay, and so what's the long-term plan post the 5-year study? What's the what's the kind of vision for it?
I guess what would be a good outcome would be if farmers who are interested have an easy way of checking in where they're sitting in terms of soil health, and having some really easy tools to, I guess, diagnose and improve. And then the outcome we want from that is hopefully better water quality, lower greenhouse gases, more profitable farming, less frustration when things don't go wrong, I guess. All those sort of things is really what we're looking for.
Mm-hmm. And how are you planning on, I mean, obviously you're hoping to see positive outcomes from the trial. What have you seen so far, and how do you plan on encouraging other farmers to incorporate some of these techniques into their farming systems? Like, what role does Synlait have to play in that?
I think it has to be, the number one thing is that it has to be word of mouth. This really works, and this is interesting to you. I think that needs to be the number one thing. So whatever it is that a problem a farm is trying to solve, it needs to do that for them. That's probably the most important thing. I guess the progress that we've made is the farmers who are involved are really, really engaged in it, and they've really enjoyed the things that are hands-on, like the visual soil assessment, for example, has been really good for them. Probably every farmer's probably had a different experience, but they're still engaged in it. But we have had some that it's kind of, it's given them more confidence to go more in the direction of diverse pastures and regenerative agriculture and using less N. So there's definitely a bit of that, and to the point that one farm is actually using 0 synthetic N now in that group.
Awesome.
So there's been some pretty good things that have happened from that point of view. So I guess it's a matter of what we'd like is for hopefully these farmers talk positively about the experience and what it's meant for their farm, and then others taking it on in their journey as well, whatever they're aiming to do.
Mm. And in terms of what you're seeing, I mean, obviously meeting the demands of your customers and obviously improving environmental outcomes is something that you're focused on now, David. In terms of what you're seeing from the market, in terms of market signals, what's coming next for you guys? Like, in your role, you talked about that you're sort of looking at the future. What's on the horizon?
I think the biggest from the customer end is still about climate change and reducing greenhouse gases, and several of our large customers have net zero targets for 2050 and quite aggressive targets leading up to 2050 as well. But I think what they're trying to do, and to a certain extent we're trying to do as well, is figure out, so that's all very well to have that target, but how do we turn that into something that's meaningful and farmers can grab onto and actually see how they can participate and still be profitable in their business, and also not end up with any unwanted outcomes as well. So really, to answer the question, the number one thing that we're still seeing at the moment is around climate and reducing greenhouse gases. I guess the thing that's coming that hasn't happened as yet is, at the moment, there's a big concentration on mitigating greenhouse gases, and the next really big thing is going to be adaptation and thinking out 20, 30, 40 years. If the climate does keep warming, what is that going to mean for my farm, and how am I going to maintain my resilience through that warming? And to deal with some of those things that could happen 20 or 30, 40 years out, we have to actually make decisions now. So there's quite a lot of thought going into that from our end, and not a lot of interaction with farmers yet on that, but there will be over time.
But surely, as part of the regen or soil health project that you're running, you're looking at that resilience piece, because I mean, soil health, I mean, I'm not a soil scientist by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm picking that, like, if you've got really good soil health, you have a more diverse system and a more resilient system. So have you seen any kind of, in the 3 years that you're running to date, have you seen any progress in that space?
I think it's too early, and I don't think anyone was anticipating would see any dramatic changes. I think it's just too early. But we are still hoping that we will get to see those some changes after 5 years. I think it's probably what the bigger piece is, as I said before, some farmers, it's given them confidence to do other things across their farm. So that's probably the more bigger thing that we're seeing. But you're right too, though, that really soil health, improving soil health and understanding soil health is really huge in terms of that climate adaptation piece as well, obviously. Yep.
Nice. And what about the topic of nature? We hear that quite a lot here at the bank, and I'm just keen to see what Synlait's kind of perspective is on that. What does that look like for you and your suppliers in the future?
So, that has definitely become a focus of our customers as well, and they talk about extinction of species and biodiversity destruction and all that sort of thing being something that they are concerned about and wanting to see how they can help to improve that, I guess. So that is definitely something that's coming up, and it's reasonably new to me. I have a colleague who's right into it, but it is definitely one of the things that we'll be concentrating over the next few years as well. And it does link in. We're already doing some really good things, but they're probably just not all fully linked together. So we have our own nursery, and we'll be planting about 60,000 native plants this year. So we've got aspects of that going on. It probably just hasn't been turned into what are we actually trying to do across catchments over the next 20, 30, 40 years. Lots of good things happening out there, and we just need to figure out what our place is as well to assist with that where we can.
And what do you because my personal perspective, David, is that there's heaps of opportunity for New Zealand on the global stage, both in the climate space and the nature space. What's your perspective on that? What opportunities do you think that we've got?
I think they're huge, especially in areas such as Canterbury, where we have, for one reason or another, gone a little bit monoculture in some ways. And I think there's heaps of farmers that are recognising that it would be really good to get more diversity in there, and that will actually help their farming operation as well, and help with aspects of adaptation. And so I just think they're huge, and a lot of farmers thinking about, wouldn't it be great if we had some more native birds, for example, in parts of the plains where they haven't been for some time. So there's some really good thinking happening through catchment groups, and I'm just keen to be involved in that.
Awesome. David, I always like to ask my guests what they think the future looks like your perspective on what our food and fibre sector will look like in 2050.
Yeah, it's such a hard question. I think.
What would you love to see?
What would I love to see? I'd love to see, I guess, I would love to see that we were, in talking about, I guess, dairy farming specifically, I would like to see more streams of income coming in rather than just milk. So less reliance just on milk. So hopefully creating some value through that introduction of plants and that sort of thing on farm. So I guess I'm talking about carbon farming, but as well as that, perhaps some other forms of value that just go alongside farming cows as well.
Yeah. Any oh no, it's not what I want. Okay, so if a farmer wanted to know more about the soil health project that you're running and kind of any insights that you're gathering as you go along, how do they get access to that? Can they?
Yeah, so a really good question. The easiest way to do it at the moment is we've got 3 sustainability advisors, 4 actually, including North Island, obviously. So easiest way is to engage with them, and all of our farmers know those guys. So that's probably the easiest way to engage with it. But there will be some publication of at the end of it, and there are some opportunities through field days as we go through as well. So awesome. Yeah, there's quite a few ways they can engage.
Nice. And just to wrap up, Dave, any key messages or takeaways for New Zealand farmers and growers? just from your perspective and the role that you've got and the kind of insights that you get from, the exposure you have to your markets and stuff, what would you like to leave the audience with?
I just think that at a base level, what we already do is just so much better than the way that farming happens in other parts of the world. And it's it isn't as well understood as what it could be. And that's all of our mission, really, to make it better understood. And the climate is a classic one. A lot of those countries where they're looking to reduce their footprint, one of the first things they do is just get cows outside. So, for example, I think we've got an amazing base to work off, and amazing farmers who will adapt as demands from customers change, I guess.
Awesome. I think it's just nice to hear about the project being done in a farmer-centric way, like making sure that your farmers are engaged in the project and that the outcomes that you're seeking as a business and Danone may be seeking are also aligned with what your farmers' needs are. It's important to make sure that's, I guess, a key part of the research project. David, thank you so much for your time. It's been great just being able to get a little bit of insight into the project that you're running. And we'll have to get you on in a couple of years post wrap up of the research to hear all the kind of golden nuggets, I suppose.
Thanks, Katie. And I'd just like to thank Danone, AgResearch and Agricom and SFFF, and also the 10 fantastic farmers that we've had involved in this project.